I would like to answer the question, or the concern rather, by a viewer, expressed by a viewer during my epic unboxing of the Folio Society Summer Sale 2019. Some of the books there started cracking or made a lot of cracking noises when I opened them, and the concern was whether that is healthy for the integrity of the binding of the book or the spine of the book. And my answer at the time was that it's okay because, as far as I know, Folio Society's books are all sewn bound so that they have been bound by sewing rather than by gluing. That is not to say that there aren't glue involved, it's just that the glue isn't structural. So I did say that if it is glued like this one here, for example, like most paperbacks, this is known as perfect binding. I'm not quite sure why it's called perfect, because it's far from perfect actually. This one here is a really thick book, and it's quite amazing that it got away with being glued together rather than sewn together. And so this shows that the integrity of a book isn't necessarily compromised. As you can see here, this is glued here. And as you can see here, this has been bought secondhand because I would have never let my books to deteriorate it into this condition, even if I read them vigorously. As you can see here, there's a lot of cracking on the spine. It's really hard not to crack the spine with a book this thick. Usually around about 300 pages or above, it is safer to bind them by sewing rather than by gluing. So this is over 700 pages. So, 782, not counting the extra pages here. So if something is like this and you crack the spine, do they make noises? I can't quite remember. From my experience, they don't necessarily make noises. But you could see the crease here. And so when you open this, typically when I read a book like this, and a lot of my books, especially when I was younger, I started collecting books when I was about 8, I think. And I remember my first book was Bambi by Felix Salter, and I collect my books in a shoebox. And I used to read my books this way, like that. I never open them flat. I usually read my books like this. This is how I read my books most of my life, because I'm trying to spare the strain here on the binding. And when they're glued like this, as you can see here, it is self-explanatory when you see how it folds like so. So with every fold, you can see here that you are potentially compromising the binding of said book because of the way it's bound together. The spine is attached together by a thick layer of, I'm sure, good glue. Nevertheless, as you can see here, if you do this and this split for whatever reason, and in some cases that happens, the pages would become loose. So that's perfect binding, or binding by glue. I am not quite sure if perfect binding is synonymous with glue binding necessarily, because I believe, I'll show you this one here. This is the first edition of Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell, the US first edition, not the UK first edition. The author is from the UK, so I believe the first would be a first UK edition, but this is a first US edition, first printing, first edition, so it's a first rather than a first. If you notice here, this is also called, my understanding, please feel free to correct me down below, my understanding, this is also considered perfect binding, even though this, I believe, is potentially half sewn, half glued. It's, and you see there? There's glue attaching all the signatures together, and a signature is one lot of a batch here, visible or characterized or identifiable by, you can see there is a loop here. There's a loop, you can see there's a center of a loop there, like a really flat donut. Now I'm gonna try to close this up. Here, that's a signature. You can see 1, 2, 3, 4. That's a signature. And I suspect here the signatures are stitched together using, but then together, all of the signatures here are bound together using glue. And you can see the cover of the spine here is separate from the spine itself. Unlike, you can hear cracking noises there, which is unavoidable really, because there's a lot of parts here moving around each other. So compared to, let me just try. Again, you can see here the spine is here, and this is the cover of the spine, while on paperback, the cover of the spine is attached to the spine itself. I don't have autofocus, as you can see. Right? Let me try this. Let's hope I don't have to focus again, because it means needing a third hand to focus. Okay, I hope you get the idea here, right? On the right is paperback, on the left is hardback. Paperback on the right, hardback on the left, right? So this is also called perfect binding as far as I know, because the cover here is flat. Again, if that is not correct, please feel free to correct me down below in the comment section. So that's my suspicion, is that that is a combined stitching and gluing. And in this case, I would want to be very careful as well, because the glue is structural. Now, I'm going to show you Folio Society's book, which I'm currently reading. As you can see here, this here is a bit rounded. The cover of the spine is a bit rounded. This is called case binding, I believe. So here, while here, the hardback here is flat, right against the spine. But when you open it, it is not actually stuck to each other. Here, similarly, it's like that, except that here it doesn't move. So this one here is much preferred by myself and by a lot of people, because you can open and close this book, and not only is the spine cover separate from the spine movement itself, but also by doing it this way, you can see there's no creasing over here. Well, this way here, you could see some creasing there, which is unfortunate. So I bought the second hand, and again, I would not have let a book of mine come to this state, but somebody must have opened this book really widely or very flatly, and you can see there's a crease here, which is unfortunate. So that's not pristine. Here it will remain flat, not flat, sorry, it will remain uncreased with the rounded case here, which is appropriately named case binding. And here also, I believe this is Smith Sewn bound. And so it means that each of the signatures, each signature, each batch of this little group of pages here are sewn together, and then all of them are sewn along next to each other again. So each of the signatures, each of the small batches here are sewn together individually, and then all of them are stacked together and then sewn again together. But you can see here there's some gluing here as well. So knowing Folio Society's quality, unless there's some changes that I'm not aware of, that glue isn't structural. So there is glue there, but it's not structural. It doesn't hold the book together. The glue there, usually in these cases where it's completely sewn, the binding is completely sewn, is to attach. There is a piece of paper here. I'm not quite sure if I can show this to you. Probably not. So you might have to take my word for it. So here, under here, there's a piece of paper. Where am I? There. Attached to the back of all this joints, and that is what is glued onto it. So I will try to find, there is a diagram, a really simple diagram about bookbinding that I'll put down below. But the point that I'm trying to make is that in these cases, when I open this book and it cracked, I am not actually too concerned because structurally they're held, structurally they are held together by stitching instead of by glue. That is not to say that there isn't glue presence anywhere, but again, once again, the glue isn't structural. And so when I do this, when I open this and open and close and open and close, and the stress is here and isolated from the cover, the spine cover itself, and it will move along here. And because it's sewn, you can imagine something that is glued together and sewn together. And if you imagine your clothing, you know, between the arm pieces and your torso pieces, if they're not stitched together but glued together, you could imagine that they are structurally not as sound. It won't withstand a lot of movement, frequent movement like this. So that is a rather long answer in saying that no, the cracking noises of the books that you heard in my epic unboxing of the summer sale, 2019 summer sale by Folio Society summer sale is nothing to worry about as far as I'm concerned, because first of all, you have no choice but to open the pages. And those cracking noises are probably cracking along all the joints. But structurally speaking, if you think about it, because of the way it has been bound, this is why when Everyman's Library, someone found Everyman's Library in 2008, I think, at one point, one which came out of either the UK or the US distribution was found to be bound by glue, and there was an uproar. There's a reason why sewn binding is always preferred. And so, yeah, so that's it. Sorry about the ramble, but I hope that's helpful, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.